and it was not difficult for me to accept the draft and happened to be the first one called. That didn't shake me at all. I was expecting something like that, and I was at the right age, and was in good health, and I said, well, how this is going to affect me, I don't know, but I know I'll be involved. Mm-hmm. And I just had to tell that to myself, and I thought about it a lot all during those months of the years, however long it was, and so I had a wonderful attitude when the minute I stepped into a draft, you know. And the surprising thing to me is the frame of mind and the attitudes of all these other draftees. Most of them were good. Mm-hmm. And we had, I think I told you, maybe we had 3 groups: one from California, one from Iowa, and one from Texas. And we meshed in together really a lot, and it's just amazing how things worked out. But I went into the service in July of 41. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up in Fort Leonard Wood, and we had Battle of Midway, and my cousin was killed in the Battle of Midway. This happened in there when I was waiting to go into cadets, but they sent me home. I was sent home from. If I don't get too emotional, let's see. But anyway, I arrived in Denver on Friday and checked in to the organization. It's an organization downtown Denver, I guess United Airlines was running. Was what the government had done at the beginning of the war. They did everything you can think of to get to substitute and do things, get things rolling. And so they took a lot of C-47s or DC-3s. That was what our main airlines were in those days, the twin-engine DC-3. They took them off the assembly line from the airline and started a new assembly line and made them cargo planes.
C-47s.
Yeah. C-47. They call them they call those that they modified. They call those C-28s, I think.
Oh.
They weren't C-47 because C-47 is rebuilt. And see, these aren't rebuilt. They're all finished except finishing the airliner. Hmm. And but they have the reinforcements and a lot of things. But they got I don't know how many of them, but a lot of them, and then they contracted them to the airlines to not only train, but they started airline delivering people and materials around the world, around in the United States. And so they had these T-28s there, and we went to school and learned all about the aircraft, and did a little local flying. Got used to the aircraft, got to fly in there, and had quite a lot of retraining to heavier aircraft, and got to land them and everything. And then we'd start this airline job. We'd work on that. We'd have an airline pilot there, and he would run it and fly it and do most of the. And then in the middle of the night we took off from to Miami, and at British Guiana, and then not South America, British, French, and it was up the next morning, and we flew to this. This was in I think this was on a C-46. I believe that was the same kind of aircraft we were going to be flying. Mm-hmm. But then the next day we went into a pool. There were people waiting for another different kind of aircraft to get across the Atlantic, and it was one of these B-24s that they had taken and made them into a transport plane. And this they didn't do any finishing. This one they had the rough seats and a little bit noisy, and it didn't sound very good. But we took off in the middle of the night there across the Atlantic. And by next morning, by daylight, the sun was up, and we landed on a little spot out there, Ascension Island.
Oh yeah.
It's a rock, all rock, no soil. It's like this: the ships come in there and they happen to need it, and they know they're coming there, and they have a little space. They can ask them to bring some barrels of soil. And they had a few barrels of soil that they had some flowers in it and things. But that's where we started for breakfast. It was on a hill. We landed, you go out and you go out. At the end of the runway, it goes out of sight. But we had breakfast at Ascension Island, and then it was that we were about a little over 2/3 of the way, I think, across the Atlantic. And then the next morning, next day, we flew into Gold Coast, Africa. The third day, I guess it was out. We started out, then we went back to the C-47 aircraft, and we had all of us the same group of people, you know, that we've been trained together, and everybody knew each other's business, and not very much already. They all knew about my wedding, and but on that airplane that we went across into, as I say, when we took off across the ocean, and that thing, it sounded like it was going to fall apart. It was the most. It was really. I couldn't believe it that we were traveling in that thing across the ocean. But later, when I had delivered an aircraft to the South Pacific, I came back in one of those, and it's fixed up with all insulation and everything. It's a real nice little airplane, and it wasn't noisy. It is nice. But anyway, we went out across the desert and stopped at the first stop. I used to could tell all the here's a map of where we went. Down to the point of South America, and here's Extension, and then here's a crawl, and then we went across here. Mm-hmm. That's the routes that the ATC was running, because Air Transport Control, Air Transport Command, and they were using all these aircraft that they could, whatever the government could get fixed up. And we had international across the country. So there's an article, and that is about the ATC. And then Assam is on there. It's up in the northeast coast of in India. We crossed, but anyway, the first stop, another aircraft landed right behind us. Right behind us, and we all went in and had a snack and serviced the aircraft. And it was Jack Benny and his troop. He followed all along. Every time we'd stop, that guy come right in behind us. Then the next day, we flew on in into Karachi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Karachi is a nice city, very nice city. We went in there the next day, and so they had taken over a hotel. See, the British owned it, and everything, anything they needed something, they just take over and set it up for us. But we had pretty nice. Plumbing was, horrible, and the water would go off and all this kind of stuff. But we were there several days, and so the next day after we got around to Karachi, they said. We asked, well, what is there to do? They said, well, you're going to be here for 4 or 5 days. Then we had a C-47 flight, dogleg across India, and you don't have that on here. Oh yeah, let's see. Oh yeah, it's there, up there. But see, Calcutta, see, here's Accra, where we're over on this side, and then this is Calcutta's over here. Mm-hmm. And we were up here in Assam. That's just right in the northeast corner of India. In Burma, over here, the Japanese had Burma. See? So we were flying over Burma. Japanese had it. They didn't have it occupied, anything like that, but they had patrols going up through there, and into China. But we were flying supplies into China.